All right. Welcome to Council Club, everybody. It is Thursday, November 4th. And we're just talking a little bit about how we usually start with, just recapping what happened at last week's city council meeting. But we do think that today, the most kind of pressing thing, or at least that's on the top of a lot of folks' minds, is the project that's proposed at 38th Ave, just south of Dodge in the Blackstone area, Gold Coast area. And we actually have invited some other nerds about this subject matter. Ryan Reed is here. He runs, which actually, is it cool that I'm saying who you're with? I just realized, I don't know if you're secretly run that account. We can also not.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, maybe I'll just let you introduce yourself. That probably would be the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Reed. I have an Instagram account that I started when I moved here to show people what Omaha was like, because when I moved here, nobody knew anything about Omaha from where I was from. So discovering its history and all the beautiful places it has, I just wanted to share that with people. And a lot of people in Omaha liked it as well. And that is east of 72nd.
Awesome.
So thanks for inviting me along. I appreciate it.
Totally. No, I think I think I saw probably the article in the paper that came out first, and then other news stories popping up around it. And then I always have this hesitation about, that's part of why Council Club exists, right? Because we, see things come through the planning board, and the planning board is usually like, we're not the ones that you should talk to the city council. And so, I just kind of was curious about, I know there's been a lot of folks that have been following this. We listened to the planning board. We weren't there, but we listened to it and heard some really great, in my opinion, public testimony about a lot of different reasons why this development shouldn't be happening. For those of you that don't know, the proposal is to demolish 3 existing buildings that house 21 units of affordable housing. And anyone, again, as always, jump in, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I'm understanding and seeing, they're going to replace it with a big apartment complex that will only have 10 affordable housing units. So in my biggest
120 other units, supposedly at market rate,
yes,
which is, at first they did not say how much the rents were going to be, because I did go to the planning board meeting and I did speak. I did say, area, get used to it, because this is North Omaha. We've had it for so long that, and it's like fighting going uphill. And 130 total units with only 10. And my comment was, do the math. You might accept it if it was like, okay, we're going to take and displace 21. So why shouldn't we give 21 back? I mean, and my ending statement was, how much money does it have to be? How much money do you have to make? Because it's all profit. That's all money. It's money.
Of course.
And that's, so they're not, and it's going to pass, but the only thing that I can see, because there were probably, I think maybe about 9 to 10 that spoke, but there were probably 5 or more others that weren't there, but they didn't speak. And they have some very good points that were brought out as why this shouldn't be. But like I say, knowing the city council and seeing the planning board, it's going to be just like I say, everything that comes through North Omaha and this one that's coming up. There's another one that's coming up shortly. It's going to pass.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you said to pull in, and I was there. Yeah. So no, I know what was said.
Yeah, totally. No, thank you, Cheryl. Because anytime you have something to say, hop on in. And yeah, absolutely. That's why. So that's part of why Council Club exists, is because we are trying to figure out ways to influence policy and shift some of these things, which a lot of us show up and talk about, and then they don't listen to us. And so we are trying to, if nothing else, shame them into realizing that, what are you doing? You are hired by us to represent us when you are getting dozens, and sometimes it's been 100 testimonies. I'm thinking of at the budget hearing or something, for example, where everyone's standing up, nervous, hands shaking, sharing their information. And to have the planning board yesterday or the other day say only new information, it's like, no, jerks, this is your job. You're going to sit here and listen to what we have to say because it's your duty and we are your bosses. And why do you not listen to any of our testimony? Or you listen to it, but why don't your votes echo what you just heard? And so that's go ahead.
Yeah, that's what really struck me about the whole meeting is that there was, I counted 11 people that got up and spoke.
Yeah.
And all of them, were very thoughtful in what they said, really stated their opinions and their minds. But that's what really came across to me from the board was, if you got new information, come on up, basically saying, we don't want to keep hearing the same thing over and over. And one gentleman got up after this was said, and I don't know what he said, quoting him, but he was basically like, why it took time to come here today, and I don't have any new information, so I'm going to say what I'm going to say, which was great.
Yes. And then he changed his mind. The chair changed it and said, well, we're going to listen to everybody. We're going to listen to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ryan. Yeah, the man that brought that up, he pointed out how difficult it is to retool your testimony after you may have heard some of it, you may have not, and then it ruins the flow. Yeah, that really bothers me too. But it got to me when I was speaking.
And thank you. Yeah, and you did great. I thought everyone had a lot of insightful, important, good points to make that didn't seem to really sink in much with the actual decision makers.
Oh no, and then at the end, after everybody spoke, they had a gentleman from planning, Don Seaton, come up, and they're like, well, we think people are confused about what TIF is. And it's just like, it doesn't matter. It's not about the process or what it is. People are here voicing their opinion about what they feel and what they think. That's what you should be listening to.
Yes, exactly. It's like you are the pros about how all of the intricacies work, but you should be hearing our opinions. And that is, this should not go down for a whole lot of reasons that are, to me, super reasonable. I mean, first of all, TOD, transit-oriented development, right? Like literally on, not literally on Dodge, 38th and Dodge, like very, very nearby, the biggest new piece of infrastructure when it comes to transit in Omaha in generations. And they're going to build 1-to-1 parking ratio to units. Bullshit. No, that is so ridiculous. That's so ridiculous. And again, like Cheryl was saying, they're getting rid of 21 and coming back with 10. I think that that's also ridiculous. I think, there's just so many different reasons, a lot of which we heard. But then with the TIF thing, like, let's talk about Blackstone and that area and Blighted, because that, to me, if we're going to talk about TIF and we're going to talk about like the right way to use TIF and how, Bridget Hadley will stand up at city council and be like, this is a perfect example of TIF application. That's like, to me, Blighted means another one of these agenda items that we will get to later is for TIF for affordable housing in North Omaha. Okay, yes, redlining maps. Let's use that to just direct where our TIF incentives go and actually help rebuild neighborhoods that we were intentionally destroying and still are neglecting. That's, in my opinion, the way that TIF should be used. I'm not against TIF broadly, but I think that the way it's abused continually, time after time, is like starting to get hilarious. Like, I just don't understand. And I don't know why they just keep sending Don Seaton or Bridget Hadley up to like explain to us like we're morons about how TIF works. It's like, we're not really complaining about whether or not the black and white, line by line qualifies for TIF. We're saying this stinks. It doesn't, I don't care what you call it. We don't think this makes sense. And it's our money that is being, and I guess, they always like to say, it's not like it's city money that we're giving them, it's tax incentives. So, it's just city run by developers.
What did you think, Ryan, of the theatrical performance by Pate?
Oh, you mean at the end where he was talking about being conflicted?
I don't know what I'm going. I thought, well, let's give him an award for today's performance. I was just like, oh my God, am I sitting here listening to this? And then his facial features. And I was just like, he should get an Emmy. And he looks up, well, I'm going to vote yes, but I was torn. Oh my God, you're torn? Really?
Yeah,
I mean, even if he would have said no, we know that he would have been outvoted. But the point is, at least you could have given, once you gave that big spiel and, character. And he talked about, I wanted to say, character? Do you understand? Do you have character? Character. So it was just, I just want, and I don't want to just dwell on it, but is there what maybe we should be looking at is to keep on going and testifying and saying just what you said a minute ago, Sarah, is it's not so much as the TIF thing. We understand that, but do you understand that what you're doing to the neighborhood, what you're doing to areas? And are you really, does the public know what blighted area or some kind of way bring that in? Do you think it's another way, maybe an attack? Because as you said, they keep bringing Bridget or Don down and that's not getting it. So maybe we could shame them more as to say, you know, you're not following true TIF rules. And maybe we could get a petition or something signed to send to the state to help change the real law, because it says it should be for blighted areas and there needs to be more of a specific blighted area terminology.
Yeah, I think updating a lot of definitions, even like affordable housing, you know, like there's so many definitions that we don't really have well defined. That, yeah, I mean, these rules that they love to fall back on are kind of like silly in a way anyway, when the meanings have either changed or should be further refined or whatever. You know, now they have like an extremely blighted designation that is another type of application, you know, but I don't know. I just think it's hilarious that we're like, anytime it's around Blackstone, which is like seemingly the hottest new area in town for everyone to do whatever they want with a ton of money, right by like, you know, yeah, there's just so much money in that area for them to say that that's blighted. And then this is how they can get additional incentives. It's just kind of insulting. And I just don't understand why everyone has nothing but excuses. Like, why does no one have a backbone and can vote, you know, in dissent with all this other shit? Because it's like, as long as we just keep having the same people rubber stamp and stuff. So I don't know, when it comes to city council, I guess I will be interested to see if there is at least any dialogue or debate or back and forth. It's not on this coming agenda, but
yeah, and I think a lot of people that testified at the public, the planning board should definitely come back and say exactly what they said to the city council. I feel like it's totally within reason. It's not out of order. It's on topic. So, and I feel like they might listen to you, but if it's just for TIF, they're going to be like, sorry, that's a done deal.
But I think there will have to be also like maybe a replatting request. Like I think we'll have a few different opportunities to go in front of city council and bring up why this is a bad project. But again, I hope prove us wrong, city council. Not like you ever watch this, but hypothetically you're watching and you want to like prove us wrong. Now would be the time. I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities all the time to just rubber stamp shit through, but not worth holding our breath for.
So it's not on the next agenda coming up, correct, for city council?
Correct. Yeah.
It'll be like a month.
Yeah, a couple weeks or
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of, I don't know what the trajectory is.
I remember the red shirt crew. There was a neighborhood, I forget, out west somewhere.
Yeah. Do you all watch planning board meetings regularly or semi-regularly? So there's this one sort, we're nerds, that's why we're here. We don't watch all of them, but like there was one a few weeks or months ago, what is time, where all these like little, you know, NIMBYs from West Omaha, NIMBY, not in my backyard, in case anyone's not familiar with the acronym, which you probably are. They all like had coordinated red outfits and came in like, we're really concerned about, you know, those
Section 8.
Yeah, right, you know, those sorts of things, exactly. So it was like, and it wasn't even Section 8, it was just apartments in their neighborhood. And they had like all these concerns about traffic and parking and, you know, it's just kind of dog whistles. They don't want, quote unquote, those people in their neighborhood.
Right.
So they all wore red, and the planning board was like, we really appreciate your outfits. Maybe they didn't say that, but they were like, we really appreciate that you all came here like and have a coordinated message, but it's not up to us. You need to go to city council. And so what we talk about a lot at Council Club is like this not it game where it's like, oh, nope, it's, you know what, you now you missed your opportunity. And so it's like, I would like to really have them break it down, talk to us like they're stupid, like they do with TIF, like where in this process would public feedback make a difference? Because you tell us at city council, it should have been a planning board, and you tell us at planning board, it's not up to you, it's city council. So I don't know. I'm sort of interested in new tactics, but What I'm also thinking is in 2016, I believe, was when the city of Omaha was going to write a check to the Omaha Performing Arts Society for the spec building to knock that down to turn it into parking. And so now this isn't identically the same, but it is knocking down cool old buildings with character for parking. And so Mode Shift Omaha rallied together with Restoration Exchange, and we put together a protest. And actually, it wasn't just because of us, but we saved the building. And I hate to say it was a shame campaign, but sometimes that's the way that you got to get these people's attention. I've been trying other tactics for a decade with transportation policy, and like the way we make the most progress is when we're like, wow, we're going to make you look bad. So that might be a thing that we're going to need to do again. This is just Sarah Johnson speaking, though. Once again, this is not an official Mode Shift Omaha statement because the board has not decided what their statement's going to be on it specifically, because we have like a missing middle housing team, which likes missing middle. And this is the missing middle that would be getting destroyed in, place of a big new apartment building, but also its density along a transit line. So yeah, anyway, so they're formulating that, but Sarah Johnson I think it's fucked up and we should have a protest. That is, go ahead.
Good. No, I was thinking about that too, because I came down to shop at the time and made signs and joined a lot of my friends and being a part of that, like, Quentin, who did the design for Respect and all of that stuff. And so I was kind of thinking maybe, do something same again, have like a postcard writing campaign where you just get a bunch of people together and you put you write postcards and you use that design that Hanscom Park Studios just made, and in a way to like get the word out there, but also get people together to talk, and maybe people that aren't into transportation or people that aren't into preservation, all working together towards one goal, like what happened back in 2016.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
That worked great.
I loved it. Yeah, and we actually got Mode Shift and Restoration Exchange received an award from Downtown Inc. at like their downtown gala for saving the spec, and then the mayor, I took a picture with Christine Gerber and the mayor afterwards, and the mayor like flips around to me. She's like, "What are you gonna do with this photograph?" And I'm like, "I didn't even take it. I didn't even
It was on your desktop and your computer for the longest time. Like, you're just like falling
it cracks me. My grin is so wide because I'm just like, you hate this right now. I love it. Anywho, but yeah, into postcard writing. I bet like we could see what Hanscom Park, if they'd be up for. We could probably crowdsource printing some postcards and doing something like that, and then just flooding the city council's office at this point, since it's going to be, it's already through planning. Worth a shot, maybe. Everyone's at home.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like you were saying earlier, the people who spoke so well, get them back, and how do you think you encourage other people to get up and speak? Because like I'm the kind of person, I'll write a letter, but I'm not too into public speaking.
Yeah. And they're both good. They're both good. I think that it's important to hit them from all angles and just make sure that because there's a lot of people that again, like first and foremost, don't have time or the luxury to take off work at 2:00 on a Tuesday and go sit at City Hall for who knows how many hours, because you never know how long it's going to go. And if you miss your item, then you're out of luck. So I think letter writing, postcard writing, and public testimony are all important. And I think, like Cheryl said, it's probably still going to pass. And then what? Then I don't know what we do next, but I think that's part of why I wanted to bring you all in tonight, is like, let's scheme on it and see what we all think would be a good group tactic. Because through Council Club, and then again, depending on whether or not Mode Shift, but we publicize stuff and people show up. So yeah, what else? Anybody think?
We'll just keep it on the agenda. I feel like leading up to that, we know it's going to be within a couple of weeks. You said for the TIF, then the replat, the rezone might be.
Yeah, because if they're going to tear out 3 buildings and turn it into 1, I think they might have to do some stuff with replatting. Yeah,
because they're going to take that whole north end of the block, aren't they?
Looks like it.
I think.
I mean, I don't have, honestly.
Sarah, do you have anyone that's good at making like a call to action graphic?
Yeah.
And just, make a call to action and kind of spread that around, especially if we have a few weeks.
Yeah. If we can all, social media, blast it all over. We can do like I mean, depending on exactly what we end up wanting to do, aside from like the public testimony call to action, which again, 2:00 Tuesday. But if we end up doing like a postcard writing or something like that ahead of time, I don't know. I know sometimes, what is that place called? I'm not really, what's it called? Urban Abbey. They sometimes host like political, things. It's like a downtown coffee shop, bookshop. Or if somebody else wants to host a postcard writing thing, or if we just want to have a postcard pickup and then everyone writes them on their own. I don't know, whatever sounds like it would be fun or impactful or get stuff done. But then, yeah, we could do either work with Quentin, or we've got some other buddies that are good at graphic design type stuff.
So are there some organizations that you think would partner together to put out this call?
To me, it makes sense for Restoration Omaha and Mode Shift Omaha to work together, because it's a thing that involves old buildings and parking and transit and walkability. Like it's to me, but I am no longer on the board. I stepped down to be the volunteer and membership coordinator. So now I have to, run things by them. So, and I'm always the one that's the most outspoken. So sometimes they like that, sometimes they don't. So we'll see. But maybe, yeah, I'll keep you all posted on that. But do you all have other ideas aside from restoration? Here we go, Blackstone Neighborhood Association. I don't know if anyone said anything from them yet. That would be a good
Yeah,
idea.
neighborhood associations too, because even though it didn't come out as a victory with the Clarinda page, I know a lot of neighborhood associations work together on that one.
Yeah.
To like write letters and mail them in and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Gifford Park's meeting tonight, but there were a few folks from the Gifford Park neighborhood that spoke, like 2 Alexes, I guess. So yeah, if we could just kind of, I mean, that's why I was so excited to see that many people there in the middle of a work day trying to speak. I, like a jerk, like I knew it was going to pass 6-0 and it wouldn't matter. I feel like that probably was city council too, but at least these people are elected officials and not mayoral appointments, which is a whole nother thing that, we talk about sometimes with council club, like how these people get into power and how they answered us because they're elected, and how like the library board appointed, planning board appointed. So many of these boards and commissions that make big decisions about our money and our community are appointed by one person who doesn't always think like, certainly me, or a lot of the rest of us, voted in by an embarrassingly low number of the population percentage wise. Anyway, so elected officials. I don't know. I guess we could talk about this, all night long, which we totally can. We make the rules. It's like Outback Steakhouse, no rules.
But I have a question for anyone on the call who's more familiar with this issue. When did it become public, the plans to demolish these three housing structures to put up was it just I saw there's a World Herald article in mid to late October?
That's when I saw it first.
Is that the earliest that people found out about it?
So I think that's when it became public, yeah.
Yeah.
So like 3 weeks ago. Oh my gosh. Okay.
And I think, didn't someone who was in that area, who lived in there, one of the young ladies said that she didn't get, because they're supposed to send out these notices to people in the area, and I think she didn't get it till like towards the middle or very end of October, and that I think they said they had a meeting, and I can't remember if he said that he had a meeting on a viral meeting or a virtual meeting, or if it was in person, but it wasn't done until October. And this is something that was thought out and planned long before October, because they never would have been able to get this. And I'd still say it's going to pass, but maybe they could put enough in there is to say, okay, we'll pass this, but if you're going to displace 21 people, you're going to have 21 units to make up, and those individuals who were displaced get first choice.
I'd say 30 affordable units. Like if we're going to be bargaining, like don't build back the bare minimum. Like you got to make, in my opinion, again, this is why I'm the weirdo outspoken one, but like I'd say make 50 affordable housing units. Like we have.
I want to get something that's going to be realistic.
Yeah, see, and I want to go
You know?
farther so that when they compromise, then it's realistic. You know, I'm like, let's go up here.
You negotiate, Sharon, and Sarah, you gotta negotiate. So
Yeah.
if you know, ask for 30 and settle for 21,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
50, that's just out. So you can say it. I mean, I'm not gonna stop.
yeah, no, as
I
we all
believe in
know-
being realistic. I just
Yeah.
believe in being realistic.
Yeah, no, I know. But the problem is, like you said, you got to shoot high and then settle for what we would think is
Mhm.
realistic. Because right now they think realistic is 10. They think they're being probably generous. You know, that's what sucks about this is like they just, ugh. And I also know the developer bought a bike from me at the bike shop, and I know, nah. So anyway, that Steven Sykes guy. Anywho, so you're right. They probably, you know, we should just bend over and be grateful for 10. But I think
No, I don't think I think if you want to go for 30, fine.
yeah,
If you want to go for 50, that's still fine. But you should go for something and not just settle and say, okay, 10.
yeah.
You know, I think we need to stand up and say at least, because we need to play up the point, and especially to the media, because
Yeah.
they were there and they did stop one of them outside. Is let's voice it. Because if you settle and just say, okay, and you just go up there and stand and say the same thing over, at least let's make a big deal and say, so the media can capture that.
Totally.
To say they weren't willing, as you say, shame, well, you got to shame them.
Yeah.
And then also beat on the point of the parking spots.
Oh,
You know, we're like 10 years behind with the ORBT anyway.
Yeah.
Other cities have gone to something else. So,
right.
you know, we're just catching it up on the tail end.
I know.
And
Seriously.
let's be realistic. If you've got a 2-bedroom apartment, then you're going to have 2 cars, most likely, the large percentages. So if you're talking about, you know, you want to improve the transportation, you want to make use of ORBT, you want to make use of the bike routes, well then, hey, cut down on the parking, because you know what the parking means.
Yep.
They can charge more for that apartment. That's what the 1-to-1 is.
Yep.
And just even bring that out.
Totally. Because,
So
okay.
that's part.
Totally, 100%, yes. And so the other thing is, if, you know, a handful of us go down, we each get to speak. Although Festerson does not cut people off at 3 minutes. Like Jerem used to be like, well, 3 minutes and you're out. The lights would go on, you're down to red, he'd cut you off, whatever you were in the middle of saying, you were done. Festerson runs a looser ship now that he's the president. And so people speak for a lot more than 3 minutes. But if all of us had, you know, a little 3 or 4 minute spiel, we could all pile them together. You know, sometimes that works. In this type of a case, there probably won't be like the budget hearing where you have to register in advance, and you know that sometimes you can't count on your testimony being back to back. But something like this, we could orchestrate that if there was interest. And I'll bring up different.
I'll definitely speak.
Awesome.
And I don't need 3 minutes. I can get to my point.
You're awesome.
I'm kind of like,
yeah.
I don't like to drag on. Let's get to my point.
Yeah. No, I always appreciate hearing you when you're there.
But
cool. Okay, so yeah, we will have to just all kind of keep scheming on that. And like we said, we still have some time, so we'll try to publicize for at least the council club crew when that will be happening. But I think as long as, like you were saying too, Cheryl, a lot of times Scott and I, with the media point, like they might not, you know, maybe we can't affect the council, but we can start planting seeds in the public through the media. Right. And that I think we should, I mean, that's half the time if I say something, that's really, I'm just talking to the media more so than the council, because we know the council's plugging their ears. But
I think that really worked with spec building too, when you had the event at your shop, you know, the media was there.
Yeah.
And so everybody got to pick up on it and see it, you know, in their homes and what was going on and learn more from the other side.
Yeah, I think information sharing is really the big thing with a lot of this. And exactly, like it's right by Dodge, protest during rush hour. Yes, like I'm a fan of signs and street corners. That's how we got the Vision Zero coordinator through Mode Shift. Anyway, so yeah, we should definitely keep thinking about that, and have some like reasonable requests and suggestions, and see what type of pressure we can put on the council. And I think it's actually not a bad idea to email them all right now too. So if anybody ever, as usual, doesn't know how to get a hold of your city councilor, reach out to us and we'll put you in touch, help you find the right email addresses. But before we start the like physical postcard campaign, emails are good now, just so that, again, so that they know that we're watching and we're paying attention. We know this is about to come to y'all. We want to let you know that we don't like it right now. And you can always copy the clerk as well, and then it becomes part of public record. Sometimes I like to do that just so that it gets, you know, in the journals correctly and whatnot. Yeah, all right. I think, do you have anything else, anybody else to say on that? Or maybe we'll kind of start jumping into the actual agenda.
One thing I wanted to ask about public record. So when somebody submits a letter, if the public asks for that, like the information packet that goes to, I don't know what it's called, but the information packet that goes to planning board or city council, you know, could somebody email in and say like, can I get a copy of the information packet? You know, just to be more transparent, like to see the TIF application or the letters that were sent to them, things like that.
Yeah, a lot of it they'll put in the attachments.
Yeah, it's usually in the attachments.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you
Even emails are usually, but
Yeah.
you can still ask for it because it's public record. It does. They
So
do have
if
to
I
do
go
it.
online to the agenda, it'll be a part of the agenda as well, like the information packet.
Yeah, like in the city council, it'll say communication in opposition, and then it'll have an attachment. And sometimes it'll be like 10 letters, 10 emails, some handwritten letters that have been scanned in. Yeah, that's usually, it's all part of the agenda. That's on the city council agenda. I think the planning would be the same, open records, open meetings.
Yeah, so like the I just put in the chat the agenda that we're going to be looking at for the 9th. And so any of those, you know, you can click. There's usually like an attachment about the resolution or whatever it is specifically. And then if it's like a planning board recommendation of approval or denial, which is very rare, it's usually an approval, and then that has an attachment as well. And they're not all the same. Like that is one thing to me that's frustrating with TIF, is not all the applications are identical, you know, like it's not like one form and then it's this much affordable housing and it's this much requested here, you know, it's all just kind of like this rambling different types of applications all the time. But there are some good things to kind of read through. I try to usually, if something sticks out, I try to look at the attachments, because that's usually where all the good information is. Because there'll be times where, like when they were trying to ban e-bikes on park trails, for example, that was on an attachment, like and again, I just had too much free time on my hands. I'm like reading through, like, oh my God, they're trying to like ban e-bikes on the trails. This was just like a parks rules amendment, you know, and then you read through. So that's what we do. And that's why we're here on Thursday nights to talk about our findings.
Well, that's good to know, because I had no idea about that. Because I had reached out to the planning department and asked them, you know, for the TIF application and for the agenda, and they sent it to me, and I was like, well, you know, what about the letters? And they didn't send them to me, but they're like, you know, we've gotten about 24 letters so far.
Oh, interesting. Okay, then
So I don't know if the guy didn't have them all scanned in yet or what, so he couldn't send them over. But
you know,
he was really nice.
Good. It's refreshing. I feel like, I don't remember how long ago it was, Dr. Erin Feichtinger, works for Together and is also kind of a city council nerd. We were talking about TIF applications a while ago, and she was saying that now you have to like request them earlier if you want the full application, because once it gets to city council, it's just kind of like it's parts of it, but it's not the entire application that the developer has to submit, I guess, to planning. Scott's going deep into some planning agenda.
Oh, so this is the planning agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
It does
so
not
the
have
planning
the
agenda
attachments.
does not have attachments. So good point, Ryan. Yeah, maybe we should just and so you already
It's just
did
the
ask, and
minutes.
he said that.
Yeah, I asked him maybe about 9 o'clock before the meeting, just to get a sense of how many people had sent in letters and what they were saying, or if there was any letters of, you know, that agreed with what was going on.
That's what I wonder too, is like, are they hearing from dozens of people who are like, I can't wait for a boring old apartment complex, like, and more parking, yes, please. Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, because I bet it's not the same.
And then one more question: is there any way to get the times changed to have it in the evening? Because I feel like it's almost like just trying to be.
Yes, it's by design.
Difficult.
You know it is. Yes, it keeps certain people out of the chambers, you know,
Mhm.
working class folks. Yeah.
No, they have one meeting a year at night, and that's the budget hearing.
That's it.
Literally, that's the one, and they like it's totally accessible. We do it once a year.
And they still don't listen to us. So they're like, we know there's going to be a lot of you and you'd like to tell us how you feel. So we will humor you and move it to 6:30 or 7 in the evening. So more of you can come and shout into the void. Like, what's the freaking point? It drives me bonkers. And that's why a lot of times we call this like commiseration club, because we don't know a lot of times how to impact things, but it doesn't somehow stop us yet from trying. And again, like we said, highlighting it with your friends, sharing it with social media, getting it in front of the media, harassing your city councilors, at least so that everyone knows like people are paying attention to this stuff. And that was, kind of one of the real goals when we started doing this council club thing, was so that people were paying attention year round to what was going on. And then when it's time to elect new ones, we all understand how important the decisions they're making are with our money and how little they actually listen to us. So, yeah. I always turn bright red because I get all fired up and angry. All right. Any final things on this?
On to the recap.
We're gonna keep on keeping on. We usually try to keep these about an hour. Rarely that happens, but and as usual, feel free to come and go as you please. It's all good. But okay, we're going to hop into just a quick recap of last Tuesday, a couple days ago, the meeting on the 2nd. I think the main thing, if y'all have been paying attention to city council lately, is snow plow inspections. Not the contract for additional contractors that'll actually plow the snow in residential areas, but in fact, the inspectors to make sure the contracted plowers did their job. Vinny Palermo has been making a big deal about this. It's been on various different agendas over the last, month, I guess. And he is saying basically that we should not be paying, it's a total of about $300,000 in these snow plow inspection contracts into different quadrants of the city, basically. Each one's about, what do we say, 60-ish grand per quadrant? There's 3, yeah.
There's 5.
Or 5, yes, thank you.
5 times
30, yeah. Anyway, the one that they are talking about now, or last meeting, is unfortunately the one that affects Northeast Omaha. And it got passed, but it's one of those times where there's actually splits in the vote. It wasn't just 7-0, Palermo, Johnson, Begley all voted to not approve this contract because Palermo's argument is we already pay foremen that work for the city of Omaha to inspect the snowplow jobs. So we should not be hiring additional contractors to babysit the other contractors. He literally is calling them babysitters. He's literally reading the job descriptions that says inspect snow removal. So he kind of went back and forth with Bob Stubbe, the public works director, and it's just literally half the meeting on Tuesday was about snowplow inspections. So it was a lot. Anything else you want to add about that?
No, it passed, like you said.
Yeah. Cheryl, you were there, I assume. Did you have any thoughts on that whole discussion?
Well, I think my thought was, and I also went to the pre-conference that Tuesday. Okay. My thoughts was several of the did not know the week before when they voted to pass all but the one contract. They looked at it as District 1. They were thinking that was Festerson's area. But the district,
not public works districts.
It was the public works district.
Yeah.
Is District 1. And at the pre-conference is when it came out that it was District 1 was Northeast Omaha and parts of Begley's area. I know what Councilwoman Johnson said and all that, but I think the point, because it wasn't you couldn't have a public hearing, I wanted to bring out, this is typical of how do you pass something that you're not all familiar with as knowing what they were talking about, and that you are going to say one set of the citizens of Omaha do not get the same as the other citizens, where Benny's argument was, you're going to get the plow. We understand we will get it plowed in Northeast Omaha. It's just, when do we get it plowed?
Mhm.
When you've done everything else. So I was disappointed that it even came up again, that it should have been passed the week before.
Mhm.
And that I was disappointed that, I mean, I know where Benny was coming from,
Yeah.
but actually, and Bagley and Johnson, although they were new to it,
Mhm.
they did not know that that was really their district. And just the part in District 1 is mainly downtown part
Mhm.
of Bagley's deal. So you know that's going to get done. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
is it going to be done, because
Yeah.
that's downtown, that's money.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed that this was even coming up on the agenda.
Mhm.
And I think they need to learn more about what's going on. Maybe they need to be involved in this in your city council group.
Yeah, we've invited some of them before, because
And-
I totally echo your sentiments there, Cheryl. Not like,
Yeah, I'm like, what were you thinking? Why
yeah,
you didn't know that this was Public Works District? Because there's only 5 Public Works districts where
Yeah.
there's 7
there's
city
7 of you.
council districts.
Yeah.
So
No, that's
my
great.
thought was that, and I probably would have grabbed Channel 3 and 6 that were there and said, this is what goes on with District 2 all the time, if they hadn't passed it. And basically, I think the one reason it did pass was because it was brought out in the pre-council that these were city public works districts versus city planning. And that's one reason why. Of course, Festerson voted for it last time because it wasn't his area.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So anyway, that's my thoughts. I wasn't happy, but
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that it shouldn't have just been one community, segment of the community that's left
how
out.
do you do?
Yeah, I think that the point that I liked that Palermo was trying to make is, let's maybe not have inspectors on any of them, and let's use that money to hire people. Like, how come we have so many people that are short in public works right now? I don't know, that's probably, that's a multifaceted question with why they have staffing problems.
Well, it's because it is all of the area employment. So it's not just,
right.
Public works. I like what Vinny was saying, but come on, let's be realistic. Everybody's short in help. So it's not going to happen. It was one of the few times I did agree with Melton, is that, hey, change. So we need to, if we can't do anything this year, but let's be saying and hold public works, you got to come to us with a different plan next year.
Yeah, totally. And I hope that they all remember that. And next year we aren't having the same conversations.
Yep.
Oh, shoot, it's too late. Because we've definitely been hearing about snow and plowing issues for years. So this isn't a new conversation even this year. But yeah, maybe next year they'll get it figured out. We'll keep an eye, maybe. All right. So then I guess the other thing you want to talk about, the upcoming legislative summit with the Lincoln City Council, happens every couple of years. They mentioned, Festerson mentioned that. That's going to be coming up. I don't remember what they were talking about when he brought that
So
up.
LIHTC,
Oh yeah, the low income housing tax credit project they're talking about.
and the guy schooled him. The guy had a 10-minute dissertation on this specific project and how it uses low income tax credits. And so yeah, they Festerson said that they're going to meet with the Lincoln City Council to go over things like affordable housing, and they're going to meet at that guy's house or one of his properties. So he's going to but one of the interesting things that my ears perked up when I heard Lincoln City Council was, God, I guess it isn't the City Council, it's the planning department.
Planning.
Well, anyway, the city of Lincoln just recently came out with a plan, I think for the year 2030 or maybe 2050. It's the future plan. And they're acknowledging that that redlining was in Lincoln, and that they're acknowledging it, and they're going to do something about it, as opposed to Omaha that does not acknowledge it. So I would really like for when Omaha City Council meets with Lincoln City Council, figure out a way to mimic that and have Omaha acknowledge that redlining existed. And
I
do
sent
something,
that, yeah,
do something about it.
I sent that article to Dave Banslaw, our planning director, and said, hey, look at what Lincoln's doing. They're acknowledging the horrible past and being intentional about building accordingly in the future. Ugh. He did not respond. It will not surprise you. But yeah.
So there was an article about what Lincoln Planning
Yeah.
Department's doing.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. Because, yeah, go ahead, Cheryl.
I was just gonna say, Lincoln was at that hearing that Justin Wayne, I believe, held on hearing for affordable housing, and Lincoln came in. They do not have the same problems in having affordable housing, I guess, is because their housing, how shall I say? They have housing, they don't have a housing problem. They have redlining, but they don't have the housing problem that Omaha has as not having sufficient amount. And one thing with all these apartments going up, you notice that's apartments. Where do the townhouses and the single family homes go up?
Yeah, there's some of those on the agenda this next week. Do you see those? We'll get into that here in a second, but yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay, so we'll keep blasting on through here. A little bit of talk about retaining walls along the Keystone Trail. We always kind of pay attention to like
Specifically,
parks and trails.
the part about the Keystone Trail retaining walls, look for them in spring of 2022. And I just wanted to make a note. So it's like, Petcherson even asked him, like, are we going to see him soon? He's like, nope, next year. So we know some people that use the trail every day to commute. So spring of 22.
Yeah, keeping an eye.
Yeah.
Oh, and then again, I don't know if any of you are following this regularly, but usually there's not like a super last minute supplemental agenda item for like the tune of $500,000, but there was last year. They kind of like snuck it in right at the end, and it was for a grant for some police money. And I'm just kind of wondering who dropped the ball on that grant, because a $500,000 grant you kind of need to be on top of. I've written a few grants, and this one they snuck it in right then because the deadline was literally the next day. Anyway, but it passed, of course.
And the attachment, was that the 400-page attachment? Or no, that was the bond one. This is a 130-page attachment.
Yeah.
Snuck in at the last minute.
Yeah,
with
who can
$500,000.
possibly read all that? Like, they're not reading all this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, when we talk about we don't have money, I know this is a grant specifically, but like we give a lot of money to the police when we could be like building better infrastructure, whatever. I won't give you that. Okay, so that was the thing they snuck in at the last of the agenda. Looking forward to this upcoming Tuesday. There is a TIF request in Blackstone, $515,000 TIF request for some commercial stuff. A 2-story building, 4 tenant bays with 2 like second floor patios. I don't know. Again, my point on this is Blackstone is not blighted. We do not need to continue to give TIF.
So we've been talking about how the blighted comes from the census. And so they just they did the census in 2020. We now have the data. I think that, and when they apply for these TIF things, it's at the moment which you applied, was it blighted? So I feel like they haven't updated with the new census, but I don't think it.
Be interesting to see if that number does change enough that it.
Yeah, I feel like it's certainly not blighted anymore, but
yeah,
was
It
blighted.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It does not matter.
That is the sad theme of Council Club. None of it matters, but here
Every
we are.
once in a while it does matter. But yeah, you're right.
That's the reason why you need to go back to the legislature to get that, and maybe contacting Justin Wayne, who is up on that.
Yeah.
And I think, if there was enough pressure and stuff put on, he would try to bring something forward, because that is not how the law was supposed to be enacted, as to be called blighted.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
now it doesn't matter. And every developer knows that all you have to do is go in and put in. The only thing you really have to show is, if you didn't get TIF funds, would this project be able to be completed?
Exactly. Yeah, the but for.
Yep.
If
So my thing is, well, then it just wouldn't get done. If it ain't blighted, you just ain't gonna get done. But,
right, exactly. And then you wouldn't just knock down all those houses and displace all those people. No big deal. Ugh, totally. TIF bums me out all the time. Not all the time, but that one did. The next one, item 13, is for TIF in North Omaha. It's for $1 million request from Habitat for Humanity, and that is single family homes. So 26 different lots between like 24th and 29th, Pratt to Pinckney. And they're all vacant lots right now. So we'll see.
I will be going, at least I'm planning on going down next week. And my point is, I'm going to go ahead and support the TIF because I know they're already going to get the TIF. That isn't even the question.
Yeah.
But I think there should be more drawn out as to, and it seems like they didn't get that when I testified before. If you go, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but when they talk about employment, which I think is on page 27, employees by type, and it says management equals 92 permanent full-time jobs. Number of jobs created, non-construction is 0. Number of jobs retained, non-construction is 83. Number of jobs, construction jobs created. And one thing I have already told Councilman Johnson, you round this, what is this bringing to North Omaha? Because Habitat, and they don't publicize it, but if you look, Habitat, their homes, most of those they get material free, nonprofit. I mean, companies give it to them because it gets a write-off. A lot of their help that does the construction work is from Peace Corps, or well, it's not AmeriCorps now, is what they call it. Others is from volunteers when they have the big days. But yet and still these homes, and I followed in Sunday's transfer of real estate, these homes that Habitat, many of those homes are sold for $160-some thousand. So, Habitat is making nothing but profit in a sense on these. And if you're talking about employment, where is the employment at? And I guess my point is, I know this is going to pass. I understand that, but could you at least admit, follow this, what it says is show where is this bringing income into your community? When they hire the construction, if they hire, where are they getting the construction companies? So, is it North Omaha construction companies? Is it minority construction companies? Is it woman-owned construction companies? And then you have management. It's all your jobs are in management. How many do you have in management that are from that community or minorities or, refugees, immigrants, people? That's my point is, if you're going to have these, and I've made a comment to city planning, why isn't this information, you say it's supposed to be in there, then why isn't it? And then on page where they talk about appraised homes are 130,000 to 140,000 K with your mortgage payments in the amount of $700 to $1,000 a month. So how does that work if that house is appraised at that much and you're selling them at $160,000? You're no more than different than any of the other real estaters or developers, is that you're selling these for profit above market. It's what the seller can get. And that's what they're doing. Although they're only appraised at 130, then why aren't you selling them at that rate?
That is a great point. Yeah, I didn't catch that part. Ugh. Yeah.
So, and I think one other thing that I intend to bring out is on the rules for those who can apply. I know the last time they had, I can't think of her name. She came up and tried to say, oh, we really work with the families to get them credit worthy. Excuse me, but I know people who you did not work with. And one lady, she just said, I work all the time and I'm not going to put no sweat equity in there. And if I'm going to pay that much, I'm just going to go and keep working till I get, I can go and maybe buy one on the market. So, some of those things where they have, I intend hopefully to be able, we need to start focusing on that because they've made this like habitat is the great savior. And who are they the great savior of and who pays for it? So I do have a problem with those things. I hope to be brought out, although I said I will support the tip because it does bring housing into the area.
Yeah.
But I just want on the record of some of those facts that need to be brought out.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's a lot of good points.
So.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all that. Right, let's keep rolling. 14 is a special permit for group living, kind of like a recovery reentry program, a group home at 5008 North 60th Ave called New Beginnings for up to 6 adult women. I noticed they need a parking waiver. I always am looking at parking.
So that means you want less parking?
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you have 6 people living in a home, our stupid old antiquated zoning policies and parking minimums require that you have more parking than they do. But this and the next number 15 is a similar thing in South Omaha, also needs a parking waiver because a lot of folks, when they get out of treatment or incarceration or whatever, they aren't driving anyway. So they don't need, like when they're in alcohol and substance abuse recovery, they're not driving anyway. So anyway, that's what 14 and 15 were. 14 on North 60th Ave and 15 on South 75th Street. Okie dokie. Then we go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's going to be kind of interesting. I want to see what approach or what Vinny says on that. That's because isn't that in his area? The one that's south?
South 75th. So that'll actually be Begley's district.
75th. Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see then what they say on that is because, they may not have parking, may not want because their people don't need parking. But what about the neighbors?
Yeah.
And people who might move in. So I'll just be interesting to see.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one on South 75th has 12 residents capacity for 12. Okay, cool. Then jumping through up to 26 through 44, there's public hearing on those items this Tuesday. 29 is another issue with panel repair, this time with Swain Construction. There was a bit of conversation with, Public Works and panel repair issues with a big change order a week or so ago. So we'll see if there's any discussion on this change order panel repair situation. There's a terrible building that's been falling down for a long time at 85th and Blondo. Number 31 is the demolition of that shitty falling down building. So I am excited to see that. It's right by the Keystone Trail, literally like the one of those trucks where like the roof is falling in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's finally, yep. Every time we're like, this is so scary and dangerous. And like people are walking by there and the building's literally falling over. Anyway, it's going down.
I've always wondered what's going on with that building because I've seen like the collapsed roof.
Yes.
It's been like that forever.
It really has, way too long. Yeah, it's like, why can't developers like knock over falling apart buildings, not totally structurally fine ones, just to whatever. Okay, so yeah, that one's going away. 32, 33, 34, 35. Almost $400,000 for homeless services. So 32 is $45,000 to the Stevens Center at 27th and Q. 33, 68 grand for Heartland Family Services on South 42nd. 167,000 for the Santa Francis House on North 17th. And then item 35 is 63 grand to Together Inc. for homeless services on 24th and Leavenworth. So when we're talking about housing, I guess it's good that we're also trying to take care of our unhoused neighbors, but that all of that is still, under $400,000, which like when you just compare it to some of the other line items where they have no problem just like handing out hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars for not helping homeless people. I don't know. I guess I'm glad to see it. I'll leave it at that. 36 is for housing situation around 38th and Miami, and a few houses on 38th and Corby. So it's going to be 5 different homes, and it's GESU Housing Incorporated. It's a nonprofit developer. I don't know much about them, but they're applying for $500,000 in home program funds. So low income program. Anybody know anything about those folks?
They don't build very many And they've been around, oh, I know for at least the last 7-10 years, maybe, but they don't build very many. And they kind of had a dry spell there for a bit. And then they started up, it started with the Jesuits. And so they usually, like I say, don't build very many, maybe 5, 6, 7. I think maybe that's been about the most I've seen them really build at one time.
Interesting.
I don't have a problem with them requesting it. And I think that they try hard to get families into the area of those homes that their policy is totally different than Habitat. For me, Habitat is no longer there for the little. They are for-profit, big-time developer.
Yeah.
And they actually do develop more.
Yeah. We had some interesting conversations offline after we hit stop on the recording. Sometimes there's additional chatter. And yeah, we heard some maybe questionable things about them at one
Well, I think
point.
that's how Sharon and I first met, was my Habitat map. And that's sort of, we basically figured it out on council. It's like, this seems weird. They're getting them for $1 and then turn around and then selling them. Yeah, it's just like, wait a second. And like you said, materials donated. And they also, I feel
Everything.
the Giving Wednesday or whatever the Omaha gives, they were like always one of the top rated Omaha gives. You know, they get like $1 million in donations just from that one little fundraiser.
And they get all these vacant lots when they can't develop them fast enough anyway. And
right.
Yeah. So
right.
Interesting. All right. So well, that's 36 with the GESU folks. So we'll see how that goes. 38 and 39 cop cash, 77 grand for 140 new ballistic vests, and then 245,000 for renewing some of their licensing for their automated field reporting software, like cop radios. So we brought this up, I don't know, months ago when we found out about it, but they're trying, the OPD is trying to privatize their encrypt. Thank you. I was like,
encrypt.
Yep, their channels. So, you know, sometimes what we do at Council Club is find items where maybe it's not exactly on topic, but if you wanted to speak about how encryption is bad, this could be an item where you could stand up and talk about it. Even though it's not exactly germane, it's close enough. They probably won't call you out of order before you.
And did you read the attachments on 39?
Not word for word.
Because we've heard from people that are involved that about specifically the encrypting the police scanner. We heard that it's going to be snuck. It's not going to be its own item, that it was going to be snuck in. I mean, the radio seems like a great place. We got to read that attachment.
Yeah, I probably will dive into that a little bit more. Anyway, so if you like to follow where the police spending goes, those are a couple items there. And then, so that was $77,000 for ballistic vest, $245,000 for the radios, and then compare that to $75,000 to the Women's Fund or Women's Center for Advancement for a 24/7 crisis helpline. So I usually like, you know, community services that don't involve incarceration at the end. Anyway, so cop cash, Women's Center for Advancement, 75,000 there. Then another one where I liked how they worded it, it's number 42, Simple Foundation, $50,000 for a safe places to play. And the way they worded it is to like lower the interactions with law enforcement. I'm like, yes, that's what we need to be doing, is just lowering the amount of interactions. So that is, do you want to share why you're laughing? I'm naive, I'm sure. You can say whatever.
No.
Okay.
Moving on.
Sure, sounds good. Oh, jobs. I know you're talking about jobs. They have positions for $11 an hour. Like, we should advocate for more money and a little bit more per hour. Anyway, okay. Number 43, we were talking about mayoral appointments. So there's an urban design review board appointment of a guy named Kurt Scissor. He's with Holland Basham Architects. He was part of the Crossroads project, so it makes sense that the mayor likes him. She liked that big TIF project. But anyway, so that'll be another white guy on the urban design review board. Cool. Number 44, more bond stuff. We had a lot of discussion about that one of our sort of regular participants was really skeptical about it, but it passed. It'll pass again. They're just like rearranging, I guess, the bond stuff. 45 through 48 also, it's second hearing this coming week, public hearing as well. Some number 45 is an acquisition of some land for some work with grading and paving and more retaining wall stuffs around 72nd and D.
And then 46, the reason it's basically for Mark that's not here tonight, but it's liquid sludge dewatering polymer for the Missouri River Water Resource Recovery Facility. And so Mark's talked about how that sewage recovery facility, treatment plant, actually, we pay a fine every day we release a certain, like over the allotted amount of sewage back in untreated water into the Missouri River. And we just pay the fine every, I don't know if it's daily or monthly. Mark knew a lot more about this.
Nasty.
So Mark, if you're listening, number 46, you can talk about, this is your chance to talk about releasing untreated water into the Missouri River. Because this is, basically trying to clean up that plant. Yeah. It's South 10 and Q Street. I didn't know where it was, but yeah.
Yeah. Water resource recovery facility, sludge treatment. Interesting. Okay, we're almost done. We'll keep blasting through. 47 is a Project Safe Neighborhoods grant for $28,000 for a case analyst. UNMC, oh man, number 48. For those of you who are paying attention to like the big type of developments, what do y'all think about $30 million for parking garages at UNMC?
How many stalls though?
1,200.
Oh yeah, wow.
And so do you know how much that is per car? $25,000 per parking spot.
That's insane.
Yes, thank you. Say it again. So this is my big thing with how much we mandate parking minimums, and this isn't a parking minimums necessarily, but just in general, when we're talking about affordable housing, when we're talking about cost of development, when we're talking about TIF, when we're talking about all these different ways to spend money and ways that we could be saving money as a community, we do not need to be paying for parking garages. There was a study not that long ago that like analyzed how much of the Saddle Creek corridor is already parking, and it's like 42% or something absurd like that. And so for this big new development, I understand it's a medical facility, that's fine, but for the city to be pitching in $30 million, which is a third of their total commitment. So a third is for parking. 1,200 new stalls. It's a 60-40 split. So UNMC gets the right of way for, or the first right of refusal for 60% of the stalls that will be using 60% of the stalls. And then the city of Omaha gets 40% of not quite 500 stalls.
And we were paying for 100% of it.
Yes.
We're not paying for the 40%.
Correct. So I hate that a lot. So, you know, that's one of those things where you dig into the attachments, you'll see that it's a $93 million total commitment from the city. Some of the parts aside from the parking garage are okay. You know, if you look at like what they're doing to some of the roadways that they're going to be rebuilding, there will be like protected cycle tracks.
Isn't this TOD?
Yeah,
the Saddle Creek. Yeah, the Saddle Creek. It's all TOD. It's right near
it's right along Dodge. Again, a huge development with a bazillion parking stalls that we don't need. When we're talking about trying to incentivize transit, this is not that. And again, I understand, you know, it's medical facilities, people come from out of state. Sure, there will need to be some. There's already, this is new. If you look at the maps that they already have a ton of parking. I don't know what the exact number of stalls that are existing is. I haven't looked into it that deep, but there's already a lot. If you look at the maps, they have existing parking plentifully. So anyway, that makes me.
Is anyone going to speak on bring out those points?
I am.
Since you are going to be there to do that. Okay.
I am, because, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Mode Shift unless they want me to read a statement. Usually I have to make it clear that I'm not speaking on behalf of Mode Shift. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and here are my feelings. Because yeah, that is absurd to me. You know, this was something, I believe this is part of what we saw allocated in the CIP, capital improvement program, you know, the document that goes along with the budget. When they said it was going to be, I believe it was something like, gosh, I think 130 million total in parking garages in the CIP. That is ridiculous. That's climate denial. That's I could go on, and I will. You'll hear me on Tuesday. But yeah, so that's upsetting to me. If anybody else has any other points that they want me to include in my testimony, let me know, because I am going to be pushing my 3 minutes to make a point. Maybe I'll try to channel Cheryl and be brief and just get straight at it, but I will be there.
But I think, I was not, because I didn't really look at that well, and I was not aware, but what you said just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one to have, not only your testimony, but it needs to have a written broke down to be put into the record.
Yeah. Okay.
As an email to them as well, or,
Yeah.
Something. But
Cool. Yeah.
I think I was not aware of that. And you make such a good point on it.
Cool.
That's ridiculous.
Isn't
And we're
it?
paying 100% of the 30, but we're only getting 40% of the parking.
Yeah. And we're contributing to this car dependent culture, which is like literally killing people. Anywho.
Sarah, really quickly, sorry, I literally just finished up work. I can actually contribute.
Oh, yay. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for being here.
Is that parking employee, or is it patient, or is it both? Do we know?
I don't know. It just says that 60% of it is up to UNMC who gets it. So I would imagine patients, and I don't even know.
It's part of that whole Saddle Creek, right? Is there a name for that project? It's the Saddle Creek.
I
It used
could
to be
pull
the
up
metal
attachment.
galvanizing,
Castings.
the metal place, the metal
Castings.
plant.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
when I
the,
first moved here, there was a giant plant there, and they just tore it all down. Well, majority of it,
Yeah.
just
Steel
a couple of years
castings.
ago.
So I feel like they're doing it in phases. And actually I feel like this got brought up at the planning meeting with the walkway from,
The bridge. They don't have funding for the bridge, but they have funding for $30 million fucking parking garage.
it was actually after the 38th and Dodge. Later on, there was another property at the planning board, and someone else brought up the the bridge. So, but there's a bunch of designs and whatnot. Here, Sarah's showing it on her screen.
So, okay. So existing parking is light gray and dark gray. So light gray, dark gray, light gray, dark gray, light gray, dark gray, light gray, like there's already that. And then I don't know what this like next project, like they don't break down, existing and proposed. It's way too much. Again, This is Dodge Street. Like, are we serious when we talk, again, transit-oriented development? That actually is supposed to have some real implications and some real like teeth to it. It does not. It needs to be, the policy needs to be beefed up. It's, again, I put the picture in the chat, the link to that again. But yeah, it just drives me nuts. Parking is what is making so much of the city unaffordable and wasteful and car dependent.
Land use.
You talk about like induced demand. If you build it, they will come. Like if you keep building for more parking garages, people are just always going to drive there. You have to disinvest. Of course, there will always be some parking for people who need it and the disabled community and, loading and unloading. Yes, I'm not trying to take away everyone's cars, but I am trying to say there should be incentives to not drive everywhere all the time. And when you just continue to make plentiful parking, that's not doing it.
Well, that's part of my point about whether it's even patient or employee, because UNMC actually offers their employees, it's one of the few in the city that actually gets a benefit of riding Metro, either a discount or free even.
Yeah. I'm going to try to find that in here about this parking structure.
So what would be the parking minimums for this type of, are they basically getting the minimum?
I don't know about all of those numbers. I don't have to dig in a little bit further.
But it's more than zero.
Yeah.
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 I think they're doing what they're required to do. It's not necessarily UNMC's fault, but it's.
It might be a both and, because I think that you can apply, we just saw, you can apply for a parking waiver if you're a freaking 6-person group home. I'm pretty sure UNMC would know how to apply for a parking waiver. They own that entire segment of the city. Like they do what they want. And they should understand as a healthcare provider that we, from a health perspective, don't need to be forcing everyone to drive everywhere all the time.
I'm wondering, because I know part of what's coming in the future is the area that used to be the steel plant is actually going to be a bunch of dorms and kind of live work style for medical students. So I'm wondering if that parking is supposed to be something for that.
I don't know. I think it just says public parking facility. It says the city shall design, construct, own, manage, and operate a public parking facility within the area. Yeah, at the city's sole cost and expense, $30 million. Yeah, and it says a UNMC shall consult, cooperate, and coordinate with the city as needed and requested at any time to fulfill the city's obligation to construct the parking facility. Yeah, I think it's basically just all in the city. I'm kind of just trying to breeze through this again to see if it is saying specifically, but it doesn't. Yeah, it just says the percentage that goes to who, but it doesn't specifically say how it's going to be used.
Well, so UNMC is going to rent it. They're going to rent the spaces from us.
We're building it and then they have to rent it back. Yeah. So I don't know how it's all going to go, but I don't like that we're spending that many millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars on storing people's private property. Okay. Oh, I know. Okay. One last thing that I'm going to just bring up, and then it's like almost 9 o'clock and I'm going to let you all get on with your evenings. It's been delightful. Number 63 is in Dundee. They're about to knock down a house to build retail and apartments. So, you know, sometimes when things get knocked down in Dundee, they have concerns. That's one of those NIMBY, not in my backyard, sometimes neighborhoods. I believe the neighborhood is already against it because they have traffic and parking concerns. It's always about traffic and parking. What I would always like to say is then let's get real about not just always having to get everywhere in cars. That solves your traffic and your parking problems. All right.
Is this a new building? Sorry, I haven't had time to look through the agenda today yet.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Is this a new building that's coming down, or is that the one that everyone was kind of bitching about when they were talking about changing the zoning a couple weeks ago?
Do you remember
No. That's the like one by Popeyes.
Oh yeah, that got pulled.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
R4 to R5. Yeah, this is
right on Underwood.
kind of by the bookstore on that side of the street.
Yeah, it's like right across from that bread
The
place.
garden.
What is that?
Yeah, it's a 2-story frame house that's a rental. It's
Yeah.
got apartments in it. It's like, you know, what's going on with 38th and Dodge. It's an old house that's been split up into apartments and people rent it out now.
Yep.
So this is on the non-action agenda, meaning we won't talk about this until November 9th. No, geez, whatever next, not
December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what sometimes if you want to get really ahead of stuff, when you look in the non-action items, that gives you enough time to like say, okay, I know it's not going to be on the agenda this coming week, but keep an eye out because it'll be coming up soon. So.
And then number 68 was about recycling. I got really excited. And in the attachment, I don't know if you guys remember, Nebraska Land was the one that they never ended up awarding them the 10-year contract. And it says Nebraska Land was non-responsive to the bid, to the call for the RFP, yeah. And so First Star Fiber, which is the one that we've been with for a long time, got a 5-year contract with but that's number 68, so that won't happen until 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But still, I'm super pumped.
Yeah. Not real into Nebraska Land, and then
Yep.
they weren't responsive. So perfect. All right. Well, that was just a lot of information. Does anyone have any closing thoughts or questions or anything?
I just wanted to say thanks for inviting me, and I'm glad that I was able to participate this Thursday. I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I get to get in on one for a change. And I enjoyed it very thoroughly, and I hope you continue. And you brought out some good points, and it just emphasizes how much more we need to be as citizens. We need to be watching these things. And I know even though we can't all go down or do the employment and everything, it's maybe we need to just be circling and saying, hey, we need to be as citizens. This is what's happening to our money. Why are we getting taxed so much? And this is what's happening to our money.
Yeah.
And so keep up the good work. Keep on plugging.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, Cheryl.
Yeah, it's really, it doesn't only work when you all show up, but it's a lot more fun when you all show up. So otherwise, just Scott and I talking about this stuff on Thursdays regardless. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. And it was good to talk about 38th and Dodge. And thanks for the breakdown of this city council agenda, because I've looked through that many times trying to figure out what's going on, and it's so overwhelming because there's so much information on it.
Yeah, they're really.
So it was
It's done
good.
by design that way. It is
Oh, yeah.
designed by that way.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, it is overwhelming on purpose. And so that's why we're like, we aren't going to know all the answers, but at least we can talk about it together. And usually we all learn something by sharing. So thanks for being here. Nicole, happy to have you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, totally. And then good old Mr. Benson. Thank you as well. All right, I'm going to hit stop recording. We'll see you next Thursday.
All right, have a good week.
Thank you so much.